Welcome to another episode of Wholly Unapologetic. We are so excited to be here today, Ace and I, with a very special guest who's a big part in kicking off both of our journeys and the fact that we're even here today. So I'm going to pass it right over to you, Ace, and I'm so excited for the conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have Darshana on the call with us today because a huge part of my awakening was actually with them. And so when my life completely fell apart and I was sitting alone by myself, binge watching TV, I stumbled upon Goop, Sex, Love, and Goop. And I didn't know I was getting myself into, but I binge watched it in an entire weekend. And I went, I need that in my life. And so what did I do? I hired the people from the show to help me in my journey of figuring out what was true for me in gender, identity, self-expression, and really landing in my body and being able to be with the emotions and meet myself in that space. And so I had an actual in-person session with her, and we just dove into what was there. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Honestly, when I laid on the table, the massage table, I was like, how the fuck did I get here? What is going on? Like, it felt really vulnerable to be in that space. But your expertise actually grounded me into my body, and we could explore what does pleasure look like in a body that was really dysphoric at the time. I was really struggling with my gender and my identity, the parts I have, the parts I don't have, contemplating surgery, figuring out what was right for me. And you really gave me a safe space to really explore what's right for me in my body and how can I find pleasure in that. So I first of all want to say thank you so much for providing spaces like this for people to dive in and just to be met. There was no agenda. There was no like, hey, this is how you should feel. This is what you should do. It was, what's arising in this moment and how can I hold space for it to exist and for it to be explored and for it to be a part of you and to be embodied. So I just want to say deep gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the work that you do. And at some point, hopefully soon, I'd love to hear kind of how you got into this work and why it's so important to you.
Okay, you're going to have to let me cry first because I'm all up in my feels. I have never started a podcast interview in tears before. Thanks. Yeah, it's a really, really special thing to get to be led into people's journeys in such an intimate way. And, you know, I didn't set out with a clear map or a clear even intention around this path that I walk, this body of work, erotic wholeness that has come through me. It really was, I often say I was blessed with the gift of a lot of naivety and ignorance. What I knew was I was in a chapter of my life where things were not fitting and making sense. That wasn't my gender, but it was my sexuality. It was a very tight fitting standard that I didn't even realize I had bought into about what every aspect of my life was supposed to look like in order to be successful. And what I know now is that I was also really trying to feel safe. And I was seeking that safety in the external trappings of a corporate career that paid me a certain salary, a handsome husband with whom I bought a home we couldn't even really afford, but somehow we managed to do that in our mid 20s. I was married at 22, which is like nobody was more surprised than me and remains so. And I'm about to turn 45. It was a super innocent, beautiful story. You know, I met my former husband when I was living abroad, and we were from different countries. We were super, super in young love with each other. I'm like, okay, let's get hitched because we're going to want to do life together. And this was in very close to the post 2001 world, the 9/11 world where immigration stuff was tricky. So we're like, okay, let's get married. And so there I was at 22 which is a chapter of life when many of us are just really stepping into a lot of exploration. And I'm like, I'm wifey, I'm career woman, I'm super monogamous. I know nothing about like sex other than like, you know, I liked it. Like I liked it. I was the one who came into the marriage with a lot more sexual experience than my ex, he being from a conservative Catholic country and me being a coastal libertarian progressive like New York Jew who gratefully didn't grow up with a lot of shaming around my sexuality. That's something that I get to give credit to, that I say my parents put the fun in dysfunction in so many ways. This was not one of them. I also give credit to my matrilineal line, my Aunt Mitzi in particular, who's a super dykey lesbian, a social worker, very politically active, tended community in ways that my young self did not know how to appreciate what she was up to. My adult self, and especially when she passed away 8 years ago, I was like, oh my God, this is my elder. Like this is my elder. This is my way shower on so many levels. And I feel like I'm going all over the place with this story, but I'm just trusting that what needs to said is going to get said here. So there I was now, fast forward, I'm 28. So I've been married for 6 years at that point. It's a long time to be married in your 20s. My spiritual life had really gotten lit on fire when I found yoga. And I'm not just talking about like downward facing dog. I'm talking about like diving deep into the philosophy and the devotion. So I identify still as a bhakti yogi or yogini, which is the path of devotion. And it was something that I never found through religion previously. I tried really, really hard to find it through my ancestral inheritance of being like 100% Ashkenazi Jew. There's not a single variation in my DNA. Didn't grow up with a lot of religion, not a lot of conservatism around it. But what I wanted was to feel my belonging to something greater than myself and to have a framework for the beautiful, mysterious cycles and rhythms and goings on. And so here I am having this spiritual awakening while my marriage is coming undone for many, many reasons. One of the big ones that my ex was actually able to articulate several years after our separation. We had this beautiful heart-to-heart conversation. And he's like, you know, I was just watching you fall in love. And what I was falling in love with was my spiritual path. And he's like, and I knew that no matter what else was going on, he's like, you were going down that path and I wasn't. And I know you well enough that you were never going to be happy with that. And he was right. He was completely right. I'm not somebody who can carve myself into these boxes and have that kind of separation and compartmentalization. So painful as that was, I mean, I was like devastated when our marriage came undone, because back to the like trying to create safety, trying to create trauma, all my attachment stuff projected onto this human, all my dreams and my notions of the security, the safety, the family we would have projected onto him. Everything I thought was going to make me successful and happy in life. And then poof, it was gone. Okay. So next thing that goes on is I start to literally fuck around and find out, which is to say I start dating and I start having sex with other people. And I remembered that I used to like having sex with women before I met my husband, and that it was actually a very significant part of my formative experiences. I was having ongoing sexual relationships all throughout high school, even middle school early, like even while I dated men. And terms like queer and bisexual just weren't really even forefront of my consciousness at that point in time. I just simply knew like my desire moved in these directions. And so that kind of came back online for me again at the tail end of my 20s and my early 30s. And I'm exploring sexuality and I'm exploring spirituality and I'm newly single. And I've moved into what I dubbed my bachelorette pad, which happened to be in one of South Florida's neighborhoods. Wilton Manors, which is the very, very gay area of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I now live in the Bay Area. So like liken it to the Castro for my people who know San Francisco, but on a much smaller scale. And I'm living there, and it's like, it's like drag queens and gay bars and me dating and having all these experiences. And also most days, like up at 4 o'clock in the morning with my spiritual practices and deeply, deeply, deeply in this devotion. So those were the big things that were going on that a few years down the line brought me to a moment where I was like, I'm not cut out for this corporate job. I don't want to be chained down. I can't keep pouring my vitality. And I don't know that I would have used the word vitality then, but I can look back now. Like, I don't want to keep pouring that into something that doesn't actually like speak to my soul and light my heart up. And so when I mentioned earlier that I was blessed with the gift of like my own ignorance and naivety, I was like, well, I'm quitting. And I'm going to become a coach. And I think what I'm probably going to do is coach other corporate types about how to have a more satisfying spiritual life. That's what I thought I was doing. I did not know I was going to become a professional pussy stroker on Netflix. Didn't see that one coming. So I feel like I want to like pause for dramatic effect, and also because I'm talking a lot here. Like that is those are the origins of what was going on here. It was me figuring things out for myself in a very perfectly imperfect way. What did not fit, what was not resonating, like how do I reconcile that? And the significant tipping point was that sex was over here and spirit was over here, separated from each other. And I knew in every fiber of my being that was not the end of the story. So our dominant culture very much conditions us to believe in that schism, in that dichotomy. And every fiber of my being was like, no, like these two things are sacred and holy. I mean, we're here on the Holy Unapologetic podcast, right? And it is. And so I wanted to feel that. I remember one of my early consciousness altering experiences through spirit, which was an all-night ceremony that I was at an ashram in the Bahamas. That makes things sound very, very like, ooh. And it was. We were at an all-night ceremony for a festival called Shivaratri, honoring Shiva, who is in the Hindu pantheon, like the god of destruction. And the ultimate yogi, and there's chanting and there's drumming and there's incense and there's hundreds of people. And at a certain point, I remember I had this little djembe drum and I'm like drumming and I'm drumming and I'm drumming, and I was gone. I was like, I completely was on another realm of consciousness through that like trance-like state that got induced. And then I remember another moment with a very significant partner in my journey who I wasn't with for all that long. But the 6-ish months that we spent together were the 6 months when I cut the cord from one life to the other. Like he came into my life and it was like, okay, I'm going to shake you loose. And that was our soul contract, if you will. And that was when I put all my stuff in storage. I moved out of my house. I started traveling across the country. I'm having all this like tantric sex and we're exploring sacred sexuality together. And I remember the first time we were like making love out like on a lanai, like outdoors, like it's balmy weather. And we've got blankets spread out. And again, I had this complete spiritual experience where I kind of left my body, not in a dissociative way, in a like I can look at what is happening from an expanded perspective and I can feel it still in my body, but I can understand this as devotion, this lovemaking as sacred, this energy that's being channeled and moved here as something just so precious. And it was a few months later, under a full moon and a whole lot of internal angst, that I was literally like on my knees, outside in the backyard. It's nighttime, the moon's high. And I'm like, yo, God, goddess, creator, whoever is up there, like, I think it's time for me to quit my job, which was not an insignificant choice to make as a single, not coming from a whole lot of money, like, you know, didn't have like necessarily like family support, hadn't pursued the higher education that I thought I was going to. Another piece of my story is once upon a time I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and I decided not to go that route. So I built this corporate career and it was sustaining me. And I was like, am I going to walk away from a 6-figure salary and full benefits to do God only knows what right now? And the answer was yes. And I sent my resignation letter, and I woke up the next morning and put in motion this wild journey that brought me here. I mean, obviously a lot has happened since then. That was 11 and a half years ago, that moment of on my knees under the moon and sending the resignation letter. And here we are. So it's been a wild ride.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Something that was standing out to me in your story is just how many moments of letting go and change and uncertainty there were. I think for a lot of us that are raised, I almost want to say in the standard culture, because there's this idea of like Christianity and gender roles and especially American version of like hustle and grind and work culture and all these different like things that are layered on top of us. And those are those points of comfort and stability. And you have to sever yourself from every one of them if you want to find out who you actually are. And so that thing that was seemingly like your thing to stand on is now something you have to kind of unchain. Is just so fascinating to me. So I'd love to hear any advice you have for someone that's might be feeling angst around like, well, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with my life, or what's my one passion. Like, I think we're just, especially with the algorithms, we feel this pressure to be like, well, there's someone that's already really good at that one thing I maybe wanted to try, it's like, but with your story, there's this beautiful unfolding. And so you had your spirituality shift, and that didn't necessarily give you, okay, here's your direct next step. There wasn't this immediate next step, but there seemed to be more of a trust to allow it to unfold, and you're going to find what you need when you need it. So do you have kind of advice there in terms of that progression?
Well, I'm going to speak from the vantage point of a very actively recovering perfectionist and part of perfectionism, it's a way that we're trying to control things and create that aforementioned safety for ourselves. Like, if only every T is crossed and I is dotted and thing is lined up perfectly, and I can see 7 steps ahead of where I am right now. Like, that's the energy of perfectionism, right? Because we believe that's our guarantee for safety, or getting loved, or getting the money, or getting the whatever your definition of success is here, right? And this journey has been so imperfect. And I have been and continue to be humbled over and over and over and over again. And you heard me say it, like, there wasn't a clear plan or path. So to the people who might be like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here, good. May you continue to be blessed with the time and the space to live into the I don't know. And I remember a mentor of mine imparting this to me in the early stage of that chapter, saying, like, I don't know is not a state to fear. I don't know is ripe with possibility. There is so much potential. There is so much aliveness. So my body of work, Erotic Wholeness, one of the closest synonyms to erotic that I could offer is aliveness. It's our vitality. It's that creative energy that is both entirely us and so much bigger than us. So I say the word erotic, and a lot of people think sex. And look, you're not wrong. You're just looking at a narrow slice of it. And so, I don't know gets to be ripe with that erotic energy, that creative energy, that like, ooh, like, what's going to happen here? And a lot of us fear I don't know. Again, recovering perfectionist over here. I get scared of I don't know all the time, and I feel like I'm supposed to know. And if I do not know, holy shit, danger, danger. Like, I have those moments constantly. So none of that has necessarily stopped. What has changed is I do have more faith, and I have grown my comfort, my capacity for being in that kind of liminal, like, oh goodness, where's the ground below me? Is it there? Like, yeah. what I can say, I'm on the cusp of 45. My birthday is actually the weekend of the workshop that Ace and I are going to be co-facilitating. Ace doesn't
Ooh.
even know that yet. But I'm on the cusp of 45. And the one truth that I could say is I have never not been taken care of for every single of those days. There is not a day that has gone by that I have not made it through, that I have not had my needs met, that I have not been given opportunities to grow, expand, know myself more, be of service in this world. Like, that's a statement of fact. So like when I'm at that choice point, or at that doesn't even always feel like a choice, like when I'm at that crossroads of like, oh God, should I keep going? Like, because I'm an entrepreneur. Do you understand how hard that? I mean, I know you do. Like, entrepreneurship is not an easy path. Working in a field that is still wildly misunderstood and maligned. Even as someone, one of the benefits and the privileges that I have is my work now is presented in a way where I can be completely out. I don't have to hide the fact that I am a sex worker of a very particular sort, and I get to educate people, and I get to talk all the time about what I do, and I'm given platforms left, right, and center to share. Like, that's an incredible privilege. And most people still have no idea that what I do, what Ace does, like, is even a possibility. So it's like, I don't even know where I was going with this one, but it's to say, like, like I don't know all the time how this is going to go, why this is happening, why me. I just trust that, like, whatever that creative force is keeps saying, okay, one more step down this path, one more step down this path. And so, oh yeah, we were talking about like what somebody can do if like they're trying to figure it all out for themselves. Like, just one step at a time, y'all.
Yeah, and I love how you describe kind of that creative energy too, because I'm trying to honor myself as a creative that could probably benefit from some structure, but also still that idea that I do want to believe in something bigger than myself for creating something. So it's but to know that that is its own life force, that is a beautiful feeling. So I love that description. But yeah, I want to tie it back around to the work that you do. You talk about maligned, so this is something that is not legal in all states. But really, for me, in watching Sex Love and Goop, one of my favorite moments from the series was when you were helping a woman who was in a lesbian couple, and she talked about having pain during penetration.
Yeah.
And you were able to physically touch and help her through this process, because I've experienced a very similar thing, and I think it's very hard as someone who's a victim of sexual assault, and as someone, even as a trans man, it's like I don't want to feel like this part of my body is broken or wrong, or there's something wrong with me. And so the tenderness and kindness with which you helped her through that was so beautiful. And I watched it last night just to recap, and I was just like, it was so hard to watch someone who was so familiarly scared and not wanting to talk about these things and wanting to kind of be, you could see she wanted to be tough and she wanted to be brave. But that this is so uncomfortable. And so that, I just want to say, that was so meaningful to me. I immediately like called Ace up and I was like, so how do I get help there? Like, this is a thing. So really getting it just to see that that's even a possibility. So thank you so much for that. Getting to see you through this series was so inspirational for both of us. But let's talk about that a little bit. What is this thing that you do that is illegal in some states but can be life-changing for people?
Yeah. Well, so I'm a sexological body worker. That is one of the certifications that I hold. And it's a very niche, unique modality where erotic and therapeutic touch intersect with one another. And sexological bodywork was created by a man named Joseph Kramer, who this was born actually in response to the AIDS crisis, when a lot of gay men, San Francisco Bay Area is where this is all rooted, even though it's spread internationally at this point in time. Sexological bodywork, even though it's fringy, is all over the world. And so at that time, what was going on is there's an entire community that is being reshaped around like the danger of sexual touch and sexual contact, and also people who are sick and struggling, figuring out how can I just get my needs met for affection and connection and pleasure and co-regulation. And so these are some of the things that were going on contextually when this body of work was initially born. Now, a lot has changed and also a lot hasn't, but we're talking about decades later. I mean, that 40 years later or so, like, roughly, like, God, that makes me feel old. but so what started out as a response to a crisis inside of a very particular community has actually evolved to become a body of work that crosses all sexual orientations, genders, relationship statuses, and honestly, particular circumstances. Because my client base, yeah, I've got people who come to me with very significant trauma that they are aware of. Sometimes it's the physical trauma, sometimes it is religious, relational, cultural, developmental trauma. Oftentimes it's a mashup of all of the above. I also have people who come simply because they're like, I don't really know what I want. I don't really know what I like. And that's not okay with me. And I have couples who come because they want to deepen their intimacy together. I have individuals who come because they want a space that feels safe for them to gently and slowly explore who they are and how they are as an erotic being. So there's a lot of ways to come to this work, but what it is fundamentally that's different, that sets it apart from anything else is, I mentioned it earlier, and it's my fun way of describing what I do. I am a professional pussy stroker. And I say pussy stroker because I primarily work with vulva having bodies. Sometimes there's penises in the mix. Early days of my business, it was all penises, because sex work in its wider umbrella term has historically been something that is for men provided by women. So oldest, profession in the books. We've heard that one said. And I feel honored to descend from that lineage. I like the notion of a sacred whore, a sacred intimate, a sex worker is something that I proudly own, even though I get to do my work in a way that, like I said, is like far more above board and mainstream than many other sex workers. And I get the privileges of that and the protections of that, which is a whole other conversation that we could have. Sex work is work. Our sex workers deserve to be taken care of and respected. I'll just say that. But sexological body work, what's really beautiful about it is a lot of what is viewed as tawdry and lewd and salacious and dangerous about other forms of sex work doesn't really apply here in quite the same way, because as a practitioner, my clothes are on and the direction of everything that's going on is from me to my client. There's not a reciprocal exchange of erotic energy. I bring a particular component to the work, and this is where erotic wholeness is different, similar and different from how other sexological body workers might work, which is I've gone really deep down the trauma rabbit hole, and I'm a trained somatic experiencing practitioner, as well as some other modalities and tools in my toolkit that are very specifically about how do you work with trauma in the body? How do you work with somebody's psyche, spirit, heart, and mind, not just their body? So it truly is a holistic approach. And the thing that I get to do that most others don't is I can hold you in that trauma space in a beautifully pleasure-centric, attuned space, and I can touch your genitals in a way that you're probably going to really like. So that's healing. Like thank you, Marvin Gaye, sexual healing, right? Like when we think about that song, like it's actually, I'm going to go with that a little further. That song is meant to evoke the healing that can go on between lovers. And that's a beautiful thing. Like when you find yourself with a lover who you do feel connected to and safe with, and your body starts to open and you learn things about yourself, that is a beautifully healing and empowering experience. And I give so much gratitude to the lovers in my life who have been that for me, where I have felt healed in connection. What's also true is that anytime it is a reciprocal exchange, we are concerned about the other person. We are often, whether or not it's a conscious thing, sliding into some degree of performance and some degree of accommodating. We're following a script that has been handed to all of us that says this is the right way to be. So the right way to be sexy, to be sexual, for sex to go. We have all of these cultural scripts that have been deeply, deeply ingrained in us. None of them are objectively factual, and most of them are very limiting. And so the space that I hold, that goes out the window, because even though I am there as a very intimate partner to you, I am not your intimate partner. and you are not needing to give to me in an in-kind reciprocal exchange. I am in charge of both holding a container with a lot of care and integrity and professionalism, and also inside of that container saying, yeah, baby, bring it. Like, bring your aliveness, get curious about your expression. Do you like it like this? Do you like it like that? Your energy is welcome here. Move your body, bring your breath. And that's a very rare space for people to get to hang out in. I wish it wasn't. And that's why I do what I do. And I go on every podcast I can go on, and I love to talk about it, because could you imagine the world if we had access to this, not as some like fringy, weird thing that only certain people got, but everyone was truly pursuing sexual healing? Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was just with one of my partners the other day, and when he left, he was like, "That was amazing." He's like, "I wouldn't have expected this type of capacity to be within my body." And the reality is, a lot of us learn how to play one note on the piano, and we just keep playing that one note because it works and whatever. But there's like 72 keys. Like, let's explore, let's get curious, let's see what kind of range we have and where we can really enjoy this pleasure. It totally changes the game for people when they can see what's erotically possible for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you mentioned the like one note, I think another way to exemplify this is some of us pride ourselves on being really good givers, sexually speaking. So we have honed our craft at helping to facilitate what our partners enjoy and play that role. And we might genuinely get off on it. And I'm not poo-pooing that. It's not that there's nothing valuable there. It is, however, a very limiting experience to have if you're also not equally good at receiving, and you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe, you don't feel open to your authentic expression when the roles turn. And I'm, like, there's a lot of nuance to this, because some of what, and this is very much in your wheelhouse, Ace, it's like when we're talking about certain kink dynamics, for instance, of like a dominant and a submissive, or even a top and a bottom dynamic, like sometimes we choose very clear roles where one person is more of the active doer and the other person is more the one who it's being done to. But when I speak about giving and receiving here, I want to talk about that more as an energetic experience. Like what happens if all we know how to do is channel our energy toward another person, but we don't know how to really be in a receptive, open, soft, surrendered state to let it come to us and through us. And that's a place where a lot of, especially because I'm working with women much of the time, so I do work with a lot of cis women who the cultural script there, if you're born into a female body and you grew up with all the conditioning that girls get, you understand yourself, trans man, cis woman, or what have you, like we understand ourselves as an object of another person's pleasure and in service to their experience. That's how we're acculturated. So it's a really big deal to have a space where we turn the table completely. And this is not about you giving me anything. It is the complete opposite. It's like, whoa, can we actually get you comfortable with receiving, allowing, being the one to be nourished? I'm working right now with a client who is a lesbian who also has, I mean, lesbians have every human experience. This particular lesbian had a cancer diagnosis and a radical hysterectomy. And we're doing work together because her sexual identity has been largely predicated on being the giver and being more top energy in all of her sexual dynamics. And on the other side of her surgery, she's like, why does nothing feel like it used to feel? And I mean, there's physical reasons for that because her body has gone through a major medical trauma, but there's also like an energetic shift where she needs care in a different way than she's needed it before. And so like little by little, and she's tough, she's a former firefighter, like, you know, like, and I'm like very slowly like, okay, I'm gonna nurture you just a little bit, like just can we let like just a little bit of this nurturance in? And it's like I can't go too heavy handed on it because all the walls go up, but that's not an uncommon experience, right? Like we've given, we've created pleasure for others, but we don't actually know how to let it in. So that's a big part of the transformational journey that a lot of my clients go through, whatever their circumstances, whatever their identity, is to become better at allowing pleasure, become better at allowing that energy to move through you. And it really is deeply healing and transformational when that happens.
Absolutely. I thought that was funny catching it in the episode last night where she talks about like, wow, that felt really good. I was just focused on me and what I was feeling like. And I heard it, like, I so get that, because it's, again, like, especially being raised female, and, like, you're supposed to give the other person pleasure, and there are plenty of realistic stereotypes of maybe cis men not giving as much attention as they could to their vulva having partners. And so I just thought that was funny hearing it. I was like, girl, I get it, but it is something to work on, to actually allow yourself to feel
And the thing is, like,
get that
we get to have
attention.
this conversation without vilifying anyone. Like, let's
Yeah.
put this in a super heteronormative context. Like, the
Mhm.
woman is not wrong, the man is not wrong.
Sure.
We're playing our parts. Like,
Mhm.
but the script is faulty. The script is narrow. The script is limiting. And so this really is about like flipping that script in exchange for something that you are then authoring your own story. You are writing the truth, living the truth of who am I as an erotic being? Who am and how am I in intimacy? What happens? And you know, you said this, Ace, I'm saying this. It's like when we stop with this super narrow idea of what sex can be like, and we're like, whoa, there's so much I don't know that I don't know. Let's play. Let's find out. And that's very much, I think, what both of our work is really about, is helping people to find, even if you're coming in like healing major trauma, which again, I want to say some of the people I work with are, and a lot of the people I work with actually aren't too. So that's not the only way to enter into this. Some people are just like, I want to know myself more. I want to expand myself more. I want more pleasure in my life. Fuck yes.
So there's so many different directions we could go with this, but why don't we segue from here, talking about helping couples, to a new offering that you will be having in your collaboration? Why don't we dive in there?
I'll tee it up.
Great.
It's a really beautiful and rare thing, like the relationship that Ace and I have been cultivating, which started out as, I now know, you know, you watching Sex, Love, and Goop and being impacted, and then you being a student in some of my group courses years ago, when I was doing more like online group teaching, and then we have worked in person together. And then you sent me a message and you're like, hey, well, I think I'm coming to your area. You want to collaborate? I'm like, oh, yes. And I've never done that before. This is actually like, this is going to be a very first time experience on multiple levels of me collaborating with someone who has also been a student and client, of me bringing my body of work, erotic wholeness, to meet the erotic blueprints. So there's a lot that is special about what we're cooking up. But what was it for you that made you want to like ping me for this?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of alignment between the two of us and how we work, what kind of work we're doing with other people, even our life story and our lived experience, right? We were living this one lifestyle. All of a sudden we're like, this isn't working for me. I need to do, you know, what's right for me, self-devotion, find alignment and congruence with that, and then just kind of see what's available. And so what I'm so excited about is Deepening Eros, that's going to happen over Valentine's weekend, is a couples event for people to get the opportunity to witness and engage and to have a lived experience that's like really embodied, where we get to, as professionals, share some of our journey, show what this work looks like, and then people get a lived experience of what this is like for them in their bodies with their partners. This was transformational work for me. And the reason why I want to do these events is it totally changed the course of my life. The trajectory of my life after I had this type of experience completely changed. And it's now changed the trajectory of probably hundreds of people because I've been changed. And so what I love about this offering is that it's so deeply personal to me in the work that I do. And it's expertise in a place that a lot of us just know how to play one note on the piano. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're giving them the skill sets that they need to be able to land into their bodies, meet their partners in this space where they can cultivate what's right for them and have like a curiosity and just find what feels good in their body and live their life in pleasure. And so I am so excited about this partnership because we're doing erotic wholeness with erotic blueprints, which has never really been done before. And so we're taking two frameworks that complement each other so well and giving people a lived experience to feel it in their bodies and hopefully leave transformed.
Yes, and it is a first time ever experience because I have never collaborated in a formal way with anybody who is an erotic blueprints coach. Is that the term that we use here? Yeah. And I'm really excited about it because having had the experience of Jaya and Ian, who are the creators of this, being part of Sex Love and Goop, like that was a big introduction for me as well into this body of work of the erotic blueprints. And I often make reference to it and I'll tell clients like, go take that quiz. Like, I think it'll be insightful for you and what have you. And my work has a lot to do with fundamentally like nervous system tending and how we become more skillful and attuned with our touch, with our physical and verbal and emotional intimacy. And as I understand the erotic blueprints, all of that is a part of it, but it's also taking this really like nuanced approach at there are many different ways that our erotic energy gets to express. Oftentimes couples are kind of doing this where if you're only listening to me, I'm trying to get my hands to find each other and they're not quite finding each other. Like, so what we want is to be able to find the places of integration where we can meet each other. And back to what we've been speaking about here about like the idea of a narrow cultural script that we've all been handed. This truly is like, okay, throw that out the window. And let's really beautifully, gently, intentionally explore what writing a very present moment, authentic story of your partnered intimacy can become using these two frameworks. I'm especially excited about the demo aspect of this. So Ace, talk a little bit about, if you will, like mapping the erotic blueprints on the body and like maybe a little teaser for people of what they might expect from a demonstration of that. Because I can't wait to be in the room when this happens.
Yeah. What I love about the erotic blueprints is it gives us a language. And so there's 5 different blueprint types. There's the energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, shapeshifter. And what happens is we do an embodied experience where one person is laying on a table and the other person is body mapping them. And so they are going through the 5 different blueprints with different sensations, different energetics, and testing out what the body in front of them really truly enjoys. I think a lot of times we give our partners what we think they want or what we like, but we don't actually know how their body is wired and what would actually turn them on. And so what body mapping does is it gives us this really safer space to explore what could be possible and what erotically is turning on the person in front of us. And I'm excited about this because when I first saw this, I was like, wait, what? Like, that's possible? I didn't even know that was possible in somebody else's body, and that could be possible for me. Like, so hot.
Is this what we saw on the show when Jaya was with Erica and Erica was on the table? Is that kind of what it's going to be? Oh, yes!
Very much like that.
I'm like, I want to be the demo body.
It might happen.
It might. But I love this, and I agree. I think there's a strong parallel here that most of us touch our partners in a very particular way that might be informed by how we like to be touched, which makes a ton of sense. Like, there's nothing wrong with that in theory. Where it becomes a little tricky in practice is like, yeah, I might love soft, slow, sensual, light touch, and you might want something like firm and intense and what have you, but I don't default to giving you that touch because it's not my preference. Now, no major wrong making finger pointing here, but what we see is that there's a missed opportunity when we're not communicating about what each person's preferences are, what their needs and desires are. And so this sounds to me like a really gorgeous exploration of that with the beautiful structure of these 5 blueprints.
Yeah, it ends up being an awakening. I've led hundreds of people through the process of body mapping, and every single time, even if somebody feels like they know their partner really well, they learn something new about their partner and themselves, and how they can actually meet each other in this space and create just a chemistry that's really aligned, and it feels really just grounded and good to the body.
Yes, I love this. And so we're going to body map the erotic blueprints. That's going to be one half of the experience. And then the second half of the experience is, and I've actually, here's another thing, never, ever, ever done this, y'all. I'm doing something for the first time, which is to say, I guide my clients all the time. And when I'm working with couples, I will be guiding one partner to give the other the kind of experiences that I give to my individual clients. But in this instance, everybody who's present is going to get guidance from me in how I facilitate the erotic wholeness experience, which is a head to toe sensual exploration where we're starting with grounded, relaxed touch and then letting that sensuality and that arousal build on top of it so that our intimacy becomes a lot more skillful and nuanced. And we stop just touching the way that we're accustomed to touching and we introduce some variety and some novelty. And I, much like you said, like, I can't tell you how many times, particularly when I do this with my couples, like in private practice, like they're like, oh my God, I never knew that you could do that. Like talking to their partner, like, I didn't know you could touch me like that. I didn't know it could be so skilled. And it's like, there's such a wow factor and also a relief of like, oh, whoa, the limit that I thought was there, the limit to possibility, like that's actually not true. Like we just needed a little guidance, a little encouragement. We needed the model, we needed the permission. And so I see what we're offering to the folks who are going to come to Deepening Eros as that field of permission and some really solid, steady guidance and probably a lot of laughter and fun and just like not taking it all so seriously because goodness knows that goes a long way. So it's going to be really, really juicy.
That is so exciting. And it's funny as you're describing this, I'm thinking like, why wouldn't people just be like, oh, I'm really excited to learn more about my body and about sex? But it's like in a shame-based culture, I feel like if someone said like, oh, I'm going to get really good at sex, you'd be like, are you okay? Like, is this trying to fill a different void somewhere? But it's just another huge part of the human experience that we could just be excited to learn. And of course there would be experts and I should want to learn from these experts.
Right?
So that's such a beautiful thing. So way to go, Ace, reaching out to someone and making this happen. And thank you, Darshana, for being such an inspiration in this space that you're encouraging others to make change here as well.
Absolutely. And I want to just kind of riff for a moment, Marcus, on what you just said. Like, why wouldn't somebody want this? The truth is, many people might be hearing this and hanging out somewhere on the spectrum to nervous and excited or to get me the hell out of here to, oh my God, sign me up now. Like, and I want to normalize that. Like we are having a very candid conversation, what I hope is an inspiring conversation around these possibilities, around this potential. And as you just gave a voice to, we exist in a culture that shames and suppresses our sex. We're taught to be extremely secret and private about it in many instances. And so the idea of coming to a workshop, for instance, where other people will be present, not everyone has experience with that, or not everyone identifies with that as an immediately comfortable, aligned, permissive space. So I really want everyone listening to this to first and foremost be like, I want you to know, like, you're good wherever you are. If you are rushing to sign up now, I can't wait to meet you. And if you're like, ooh, I don't know about this, might be a little too edgy for me. Okay. Like you get to be met exactly where you are, but I want to talk to the ones who this is for and say, like, what you're getting with Ace and I are two people who both know, as from our personal lived experience, how important it is to feel safely held in a container that has enough structure, integrity, care, professionalism to really, really wrap around us as we go in to vulnerable territory. So that's what you can expect here. You can expect a container that has just so much care poured into it, so that inside of that structure, you can, get a little unfettered, come undone a little bit. And another piece of that is consent, always as the bedrock, which very simply put means that you don't do anything you don't want to do, really. So you're going to have us demonstrating things, guiding, making suggestions, and each individual present, as well as each couple, because this is specifically designed for couples. We're not going to be matching random people together. You show up with your partner of choice, whether that is your longtime beloved who you've been doing life with, whether it is a person that you're super sweetly hot on because you newly started dating and you're like, ooh, this sounds like a wonderful Valentine's together. Like, you're going to be with each other and we're going to be holding and guiding you. And everyone, to an extent, gets to choose their own adventure in sight of what's being offered, because that's what consent is all about. And I really love watching what happens when folks who might be a little trepidatious, a little like, oh, this is edgy, like blossom into, hey, that wasn't so scary or weird after all. Oh, yeah, there are other naked bodies in the room or other things that are going on, but it's not really like voyeuristic or pornographic. It's a very supportive field where we're all co-creating a particular energetic, that field of permission for pleasure, body positivity, sex positivity. It uplifts all of us. And so you get to experience what it's like to be held in that kind of space. And that's special, y'all. That is really special.
Yeah, this type of space is really unheard of. Betty Dodson did it. And it was groundbreaking, 40 years ago when she started the sex bod, and people coming in and getting into a circle and exploring their bodies on their own. This is something that a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to do. So I'm just really excited that we're giving people the opportunity to land into their bodies with their partners and grow in this type of way.
I love that you mentioned Betty Dodson, because, and I don't even know if the two of you know this. So Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop had a series before Sex, Love, and Goop. And I think it was called the Goop Lab. And one of those episodes focused around sexuality, and Betty Dodson's work was the main focus. Betty Dodson, who I consider one of my erotic elders, has since passed away. And she was a pioneering voice and force, particularly for women's sexual pleasure and liberation. And she facilitated groups, like, I'm going to use a very, like, if you go with me on the turn of phrase here, circle jerks. She created like group circle jerks for women. It was radical, which is to say, like, you got to come together, you got to drop into your body, you got to explore solo sex and masturbation. That was a big part of what I was doing in the earlier days of my practice too. I used to facilitate these online, where people would come together and be in their own solo sex practice. Even in that field where it's online, like, people would just be blown away by how empowering that is. As a sexological body worker, during our training, we have an in-person intensive. Every single day of that intensive starts with a group masturbation session. Now, when I use the word masturbation, really what it would be more accurate is to say a group self-intimacy session. So that gets to look and feel. Sometimes you're dancing, sometimes you're making art, sometimes you're stimulating your genitals, sometimes you're curled up in a ball having a cry. It's that full spectrum eroticism. It's that full spectrum intimacy. And so folks who come to this workshop of Deepening Eros, you really do have the possibility of any and all of that. And what I can guarantee you is you will know yourself and your partner more intimately. You will have skills to expand that intimate knowing. It's not just about like, oh, come and have this novelty experience, which would be worth the price of admission, in my opinion. But you're going to come away with skills, y'all, to keep deepening, keep growing, keep expanding what's possible in your relationship. And I know for me, that's one of my highest values in life. I want all of my relationships thriving in intimacy. It starts with ourselves and it extends out from there. So this is a chance for some sweeties, and it's a small group. We're only open this up to 8 couples. So if you are interested, come and talk to us.
That is so exciting and very well summarized here at the end. So we will link all the resources down below. Thank you so much both for being here. We'll catch up with everyone on the next episode of Wholly Unapologetic.